In a nation brimming with hope and rebellion, one shadow rewrote fear itself. He didn't just kill. He hunted. He played. He signed his name with a symbol and dared the world to stop him. Every era has its shadow. For San Francisco in the late 1960s, it was a phantom who turned streets into hunting grounds and newspapers into confessionals. He stalked young lovers. He struck without warning. And when the city trembled, he didn't hide. He wrote letters. He sent puzzles. He demanded an audience. It began with silence. It ended with terror. And in between, a phantom carved his name into legend. He didn't rob. He didn't rape. He killed for pleasure. And when he was done, he told the world what he had done. He would choose his own name. The Zodiac. December 20th, 1968. The night was cold. The kind of cold that clings to your breath. High school sweethearts David Faraday, just 17, and Betty Lou Jensen, 16, had gone out for what should have been an ordinary evening. They visited friends, laughed, talked about school, and then decided to drive out to Lake Herman Road, an isolated lover's lane on the edge of Vallejo, California. Around 10:15 p.m., a motorist noticed their car parked along a gravel turnout. At 11:00, another driver passed the same spot. The couple was still there. Minutes later, everything changed. At about 11:10 p.m., a car pulled alongside theirs. Shots rang out. The attacker stepped from his vehicle and approached, firing again. David was shot once in the head as he tried to get out of the car. Betty Lou bolted into the darkness, but she was struck 5 times in the back before collapsing on the roadside. The scene was horrifying. No witnesses, no footprints, no fingerprints. The police had little to work with. Their only theory, that a madman had struck out of nowhere. The story of 2 young lives stolen made local headlines. But without leads, the case quickly grew cold. Few could imagine that this was only the beginning. 7 months later, Vallejo celebrated Independence Day. Families picnicked, fireworks filled the sky. But for one young woman, 22-year-old Darlene Ferrin, and her companion, 19-year-old Michael Mageau, the holiday would end in terror. Shortly after midnight, they parked at Blue Rock Springs Park, not far from Lake Herman Road. Another vehicle pulled in and stopped beside them. The driver sat still, lights off, before suddenly speeding away. Minutes later, the same car returned. This time, the driver stepped out, flashlight in one hand, gun in the other. Believing it might be a police officer, Michael rolled down the window. Without a word, the stranger opened fire. The bullets tore through the car. Michael was hit multiple times but survived. Darlene was mortally wounded. Minutes later, a call came into Vallejo police from a nearby payphone. The voice on the other end was calm, cold, detached. "I want to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you will find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." That phone call tied the Blue Rock Springs attack to the unsolved Lake Herman Road murders. And with those words, a new figure entered the American criminal landscape. A predator who killed not only for pleasure, but for recognition. He wanted to be known. He wanted to be feared. And soon, he would give himself a name. On July 31st, 1969, just weeks after the Blue Rock Springs attack, 3 letters arrived at 3 different newspapers: the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each was handwritten, filled with misspellings, and dripping with arrogance. In these letters, the writer claimed responsibility for the murders of David Faraday, Betty Lou Jensen, and Darlene Ferrin. He demanded that the newspapers publish his words on the front page, or else, he threatened, he would spend the weekend driving around, hunting for victims. "I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas. If you do not print this cipher by the afternoon of Friday 1st of August, I will go on a kill rampage Friday night, until I end up with a dozen people over the weekend." The letters included 3 sections of a cryptogram, 408 characters in total. When pieced together, they formed what would become known as the Z408 cipher. The killer claimed his identity was hidden inside. The FBI and CIA tried to solve it. But it wasn't a cryptographer or an agent who cracked the code. Just days later, a school teacher, Donald Hardin, and his wife, Betty, in Salinas, California, sat down with the symbols. Betty guessed the killer would use the word kill. They tested patterns. And soon, the code revealed its chilling message. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. The message went on to describe killing as a thrilling experience, better than sex. It ended with a haunting declaration. Those he murdered would become his slaves in the afterlife. But the one thing it did not reveal was his name. 3 days later, the San Francisco Examiner received another letter. This one began with a line that would forever cement the killer's identity. This is the Zodiac speaking. For the first time, the killer named himself. The Zodiac. It was more than a pseudonym. It was a brand, a mask, a persona carefully designed to instill fear. Each letter contained gruesome details that only the killer could know. Proof that the writer was no fraud. He even described taping a flashlight to his gun to better aim in the dark. But the taunts didn't end there. Over the next months, more letters arrived. They included new ciphers, the Z340, the Z13, and the Z32. Some contained diagrams for bombs, others mocking poems, and some were greeting cards adorned with chilling notes. The Bay Area now lived under a cloud of terror. Parents kept children home. Lovers avoided secluded roads. And the newspapers, torn between responsibility and fear of triggering more deaths, published the Zodiac's words. For the killer, this was never just about murder. It was about power. With every letter, every cipher, every chilling phrase, he wasn't just killing people. He was holding an entire region hostage. September 27th, 1969. A Saturday afternoon at Lake Berryessa in Napa County. College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard chose a small island connected to the shore for their picnic. They laughed, read books, enjoyed the warmth of the day. Then Cecilia noticed something. A man, standing in the distance, watching. He stepped from behind the trees, wearing a strange costume. A black hood with clip-on sunglasses. A bib-like chest covering, marked with the Zodiac's crosshair symbol. In his hand, what looked like a gun. The moment was surreal, almost theatrical, and then terrifying. The man told them he had escaped from prison, that he had killed a guard, and needed their car and money to reach Mexico. He ordered Cecilia to tie up Brian with lengths of clothesline rope. When the knots were too loose, he retied them himself, ensuring they couldn't escape. Brian thought it was a robbery, but then the man pulled out a knife. He stabbed Brian 6 times. Then, Cecilia. 10. Their screams carried across the lake. After the assault, the killer walked calmly back up the hill. On Brian's car door, he drew the crosshair symbol, listing the dates of his previous crimes. He even noted the time, Sept 27/69/6:30 by knife. It was his signature. Minutes later, a payphone rang at the Napa County Sheriff's Office. A calm male voice reported a double stabbing, confessed to the crime, and gave the location. He didn't hang up. When officers arrived at the phone booth, they found a wet palm print, but no match was ever found. Just 2 weeks later, on October 11th, 1969, the Zodiac struck again, this time in the middle of San Francisco. His victim was not a young couple, but a cab driver, 29-year-old Paul Stein. Stein picked up a fare near Union Square. The passenger asked to be driven to Presidio Heights, a wealthy neighborhood. But when the cab reached Washington and Cherry Street, the man pulled out a gun and shot Stein in the head. He then calmly wiped down the cab, tore off a piece of the driver's bloody shirt, and walked away into the night. 3 teenagers watched from their window across the street. They saw everything, the man's face illuminated by the streetlight as he rummaged through the driver's body. They called police immediately. Within minutes, patrol officers were on the scene. Those officers may have stopped the Zodiac himself and let him walk away. A dispatcher had mistakenly described the suspect as black. That error allowed the killer to slip into the night, unseen. Days later, the San Francisco Chronicle received another letter. Inside was the blood-stained fabric, proof beyond doubt. The Zodiac boasted of watching police search for him, and he escalated his threats, promising to shoot out the tires of a school bus and pick off children as they fled. The killer had moved from rural lovers' lanes to the heart of the city. His reach was growing, his brazenness unmatched. The Bay Area was no longer dealing with a shadow in the night. They were dealing with a predator who could strike anywhere, at any time. The murders were only part of Zodiac's terror. What truly separated him from other killers were his words, his relentless taunts, sent to newspapers, police, and even private citizens. Between 1969 and 1974, more than 20 letters arrived, each stranger and more chilling than the last. After killing cab driver Paul Stein in San Francisco, the Zodiac mailed a piece of the victim's shirt to the Chronicle, proving beyond doubt that he was the murderer. In the same letter, he mocked the police and threatened to attack school buses, promising to shoot out their tires and gun down children as they scrambled to escape. Parents across the Bay Area panicked. Police patrols were stationed near schools. The terror was working. He was no longer just a killer. He was a manipulator, a puppeteer pulling the strings of an entire community. Each letter was filled with spelling mistakes, crude humor, and twisted games. But within the jokes were chilling confessions. He bragged of his growing body count, signing off with his trademark tally. Me 37, SFPD 0. On November 8, 1969, the Zodiac mailed a card containing a 340-character cipher. For decades, this so-called Z340 baffled experts. Some cryptologists ranked it among the most famous unsolved codes in the world, second only to the mysterious Voynich manuscript. It wasn't until 51 years later that a team of private citizens finally cracked it. American software engineer David Orenschak, Australian mathematician Sam Blake, and Belgian programmer Jarl van Eyck ran hundreds of thousands of possibilities through custom-built decryption software. At last, the cipher revealed its hidden message. I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber, because it will send me to paradise all the sooner. I have enough slaves to work for me. Once again, there was no name, no identity, just more proof that the killer's greatest pleasure came from control, from knowing the world was still talking about him. In 1970, the Chronicle's Paul Avery received a Halloween card from the Zodiac. Inside, in crude letters, the words, "Peekaboo, you are doomed." It was signed with the crosshair. Reporters wore buttons reading "I am not Avery" as a grim joke. Fear had now turned to paranoia. The Zodiac didn't stop at threats. He mailed diagrams of bombs, claiming he had constructed devices powerful enough to destroy school buses. He described weapons buried in secret locations, codes that supposedly revealed their coordinates. None of these bombs were ever found, but his words alone were enough to terrify. By 1974, the letters began to slow. His last confirmed correspondence praised the film The Exorcist as, in his words, the best satirical comedy I have ever seen. He claimed once again to have killed 37 people. And then, he fell silent. The killings had stopped, but the letters had done their work. The Zodiac no longer needed to strike. His words were enough to keep the Bay Area, and the world, in his grip. The Zodiac case quickly grew into one of the largest investigations in California history. By the mid-1970s, the San Francisco Police Department had filled cabinets with files, transcripts, witness statements, and suspects. At its height, more than 2,500 individuals had been investigated. But only one man was ever officially named as a prime suspect: Arthur Leigh Allen. Allen was a former school teacher with a troubled past. He had been fired from multiple jobs, arrested for inappropriate conduct with children, and was known to have a fascination with violent behavior. Friends and acquaintances recalled chilling comments. Allen once reportedly bragged about wanting to call himself Zodiac. He even owned a Zodiac brand wristwatch, featuring the same crosshair symbol used by the killer. Police served search warrants on Allen's home in 1972 and again in 1991. They found weapons, disturbing writings, and other potential clues. But despite the circumstantial evidence, nothing tied him definitively to the crimes. His fingerprints didn't match. His handwriting didn't match. DNA testing conducted decades later failed to link him to the letters. In 1992, Allen died of a heart attack, without ever being charged. Over the years, countless other names surfaced. journalist Richard Gaikowski, eccentric and intense, whose appearance bore a resemblance to eyewitness sketches. Earl Van Best Jr., a man whose troubled life was exposed decades later by his own son, who became convinced his father was the Zodiac. Lawrence Kane, a salesman with a criminal record, who lived near one of the victims and was said to resemble the Presidio Heights composite sketch. And more recently, Gary Francis Poste, a retired house painter who some investigators believe left hidden clues to his identity. Each suspect came with compelling theories, tantalizing details, coincidences that seemed impossible to ignore. But every time, the evidence fell short. Either the timelines didn't line up, DNA ruled them out, or the case against them collapsed under scrutiny. The truth is, after more than 50 years, no single person has ever been proven to be the Zodiac Killer. In recent years, investigators turned to modern forensic techniques. Just as the Golden State Killer was identified using genetic genealogy, police hoped DNA evidence from Zodiac's letters would finally provide an answer. In 2018, Vallejo police attempted this approach, but the results were inconclusive. The samples were too degraded, too old, too contaminated. Once again, the case returned to mystery. And so the theories continue. Amateur sleuths pore over old letters. Online forums debate endlessly. New suspects are proposed every year. Some researchers insist the Zodiac was a loner who blended into the crowd. Others argue he may have been law enforcement or military, someone trained in codes and weapons. The possibilities are endless. The certainty, non-existent. The face in the sketch is still just that, a face. Familiar to millions, but belonging to no one we can prove. The Zodiac remains, to this day, unidentified. A ghost in plain sight. The Zodiac Killer did more than terrorize Northern California. He became part of America's cultural fabric, his name etched into history not just as a criminal, but as an icon of fear, obsession, and mystery. In 1971, just 2 years after his confirmed murders, Hollywood transformed him into a villain. Clint Eastwood's Dirty Harry featured a killer named Scorpio, loosely based on the Zodiac, who also wrote letters to the press and mocked police. The parallels were unmistakable, and audiences instantly recognized the inspiration. Decades later, David Fincher's film Zodiac reignited interest in the case, dramatizing both the crimes and the endless hunt for the truth. The movie highlighted how investigators, journalists, and amateur sleuths risked their careers and even their sanity in pursuit of the killer's identity. It wasn't just about murder anymore. It was about obsession. Bookshelves filled with titles attempting to solve the puzzle. Some pointed to Arthur Leigh Allen, others to obscure figures from the Bay Area's past. Each promised answers. None could deliver proof. The rise of the internet gave birth to a new breed of investigator. True crime enthusiasts, amateur code breakers, and digital sleuths formed online communities, dissecting every letter, every police report, every cipher. Some spent decades locked in the chase. A new term was born: Zodiologists. For them, this case wasn't just a mystery. It was a lifelong obsession. Even after half a century, the Zodiac continued to generate headlines. In 2020, when the Z340 cipher was finally solved by a team of private citizens, news outlets around the world covered the breakthrough. For a moment, it felt like a piece of the puzzle had been unlocked. But the message once again gave no identity, only taunts. The killer even seeped into pop culture humor. Memes joking that modern politicians might secretly be the Zodiac spread across social media. What was once pure terror had, in some corners, become satire. Yet behind the jokes, the unease remained. For the families of his victims, there was no humor. Only grief, unanswered questions, and frustration that justice never came. For law enforcement, the Zodiac case became a symbol of failure. An open wound reminding the public that even the most infamous killers can slip through the cracks. The Zodiac's true legacy is not just the murders. It is the paranoia he created, the fascination he sparked, and the mystery he left behind. Generations have been haunted by his words, studied his codes, and stared at that simple sketch, wondering if the man sitting beside them in a diner, walking past on the street, or living down the block might once have been the Zodiac Killer. He vanished into history, but history never let him go. More than 50 years have passed since the Zodiac's last confirmed letter. Half a century of investigation, obsession, and speculation. And still, the most crucial question remains unanswered. Who was the Zodiac Killer? Police departments across California chased thousands of leads. Suspects rose and fell. Evidence was collected, tested, and retested with modern science. The FBI, the CIA, local and state law enforcement, each tried to crack the puzzle. Yet the face in the composite sketch is still just a face. The name behind the letters remains unknown. Advances in forensic science raised hopes. Genetic genealogy solved the Golden State Killer case in 2018, and many believed Zodiac's unsealed letters might offer the same breakthrough. But the samples were too degraded, too compromised. The promise of science turned to frustration. Once again, the trail went cold. Even the ciphers, long believed to hold the killer's secrets, revealed only his arrogance. The 408 told us he killed for fun. The 340 mocked investigators, sneering at their inability to catch him. The shorter codes, the Z13 and Z32, still remain unsolved. Some say his real name is in them. Others believe it was all a cruel trick, a way to keep the world guessing forever. And so the case lives on, not in police stations, but in living rooms and online forums. Amateur detectives, cryptographers, and true crime enthusiasts continue to study every scrap of evidence. For them, the Zodiac isn't just a killer from the past. He's a challenge, a puzzle that refuses to be solved. But behind the codes and theories are the victims. 5 people confirmed dead, others wounded, families shattered. Their loved ones never came home. Their stories often drowned out by the myth of the killer who took them. The Zodiac's greatest weapon was not his gun, nor his knife. It was his ability to make himself unforgettable, to turn fear into fascination, to transform murder into a riddle the world could not put down. And in that sense, he won. He carved his name, not into the cipher, not into the case files, but into history. Perhaps the answer is out there. Perhaps one day DNA, technology, or chance will unmask the face behind the letters. Or perhaps he will remain forever hidden, just a shadow, just a voice, just a symbol. The Zodiac Killer, America's most famous unsolved mystery,